Let's talk a little bit about business model innovation. Business model innovation is defined rather briefly as unique ways of creating value. You can sometimes think of it as more radical innovations that really refine or define an entire process. Perhaps we can begin by thinking of some examples of business model innovation and how we've seen it evolve over time.
I guess the area of intermediaries is a place in the hospitality industry where we've really seen a dramatic change in the business models and the value creation. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, depending upon what part of the world you're talking about, you had travel agents and brick and mortar businesses that serve the consumer either face-to-face or on phone. Fast forward, now we have online travel agencies which predominantly communicate with the customer digitally. And those online travel agencies arose maybe 10 years ago and are vast, significant entities. Fast forward again, and now you have entities like TripAdvisor, which are review sites, or Google, a search engine, with deep tentacles into vertical integration to create value for the customer in terms of providing information and executing transactions. And they are occurring systematically.
Some of the business model innovation that I've seen are around similar themes. A lot of it's engaging broadly with business problems. So rather than simply defining or solving problems from the inside out, it's actually, the outside in, top down, bottom up, and all different ways. Similarly, in terms of innovation and the promotion of entrepreneurial activity, especially in organizations where they have to really develop customized solutions to the problems or unique kinds of circumstances they face. So giving employees not less, but a lot more undefined responsibility to go out there and actually engage with customers on that very intimate, direct level that isn't necessarily prescribed. And that flies in the face of a lot of the sort of standard structural approaches that we normally see in a lot of business organizations today.
Well, in my area, the big business innovation has occurred over the last 15 to 20 years, and that's been termed by the industry asset light. Historically, in the hotel industry, you had to own the asset, to run the asset, to be able to provide services to guests. About 15 to 20 years ago, the largest hotel companies went through a process of separating the brands and their management services, their so-called intellectual property, from the real estate that's necessary to provide those services, the so-called real property. What that allows is the capital markets to price each one of those very, very efficiently. Historically, it's been very, very difficult to understand what the value of a company like Hilton was, which was mixed assets and intellectual property. When it was taken apart, it's much more clear what the valuations are. Marriott, Intercontinental Hotels, a lot of the major companies have gone through this shift, and it's been a huge change in the way the business has been done, with now these large branded firms focusing specifically on their ability to deliver services to customers, and other people worrying about providing the assets. The combination of those and the partnership has really created a lot of value within the industry.
You know what I like about your example is it's one of those elements of business models is really different partnerships. So doing different things obviously is one way of thinking about a business model innovation, but also having different relationships between players is another way in which we're seeing it. Obviously we see it in the OTA environment, the online travel agency environment, different players.
We'll think just for a moment about the information that's being collected by the online travel agents today that can be used for marketing or purposes, and the content they have. Then think about all the social media activity that's occurring in sites like Facebook. Well, there's a treasure trove of information in order to more effectively market and reach the customer and know more about the customer in order to deliver services, or for that matter, to deliver information about services. And that hasn't even developed yet. And so we're not even sure what that model looks like here today.
Yeah, some people would argue that business model innovation really had its origins in e-commerce, that's when the big radical change was all about having choices, like lots of choice. And some would argue that we're in the next wave of business model development, and that's really about having different choices, or more customized or more personalized choices. And I'm starting to think of some of the new hotel models, for example, citizenM, where you're outsourcing a big piece of your staffing, you've created a more modular and stunningly smaller guest room experience, so kind of the antithesis of the old days of having more square footage or square meters. Now it's even less. success and a model for engaging that's really different, but obviously targeting a millennial group, so they've got a very targeted set of customers. As you look, Bruce, in some of the human resource connections, do you see that business model innovation has changed how we even think about employing hospitality staff?
Sure. Instead of the sort of typical narrow roles that we have put people in over the course of time, those roles have now expanded significantly, and there's this sort of purposeful, multifunctional kinds of roles that have established. So that you're now getting people who are more easily deployed to do a lot of different things. There's also a lot more focus on the flexibility idea and giving people opportunities to the extent they can, choose where they work, how they work, and the ways in which they do it in order to address those very, locally relevant needs. You can't have people from a corporate office in a distant location figuring that stuff out. So a lot of it is putting into place systems that allow you to extract information and be able to respond to it very quickly. And in some cases, Bill, to your point earlier, sometimes that's a lot of information to try to sort through in a fairly quick period of time so that you can be responsive in the ways that address the needs that you see.
Well, I think in summary, one of the things that's really excellent about innovation, particularly business model innovation in hospitality, is that all the attention in the past has really been toward tech firms, technology, and sort of the new e-commerce space. But I think we're going to find within services some amazing changes in business models.